So guys, welcome to module number 2 of Upgrade from Within. This one is all about finding balance so that we can become zen as fuck, of course. Sneaky plug of the diary there. So this is basically all about keeping your mental health in a good state while we're doing this stuff. I touched a little bit on not getting overwhelmed in the awakening section, but I want to go a little bit more into that today, and also cover some kind of tips and techniques of dealing with anxiety, because there's no way that we can protect ourselves enough or hide ourselves enough from the world and our experiences that we're not going to feel any sort of negative stuff. Awakening is difficult at times. Having past trauma come up is difficult. We're going to have to feel through stuff. As like energy intuitives, as psychics, as healers, we have to feel through stuff that isn't going to feel very pleasant. So my aim with this section is just to help you cope with all of that a little bit better. So first, what I want to talk about is taking things with a pinch of salt. Now, what I mean by that is you're going to read some things online about people's experiences. You're going to probably hear things in the support group, even some stuff that I talk about when I get brave enough to start talking about more of my experiences, that are just going to jar with you because you're simply not ready to hear them yet. They may be something that, to be honest, it might never be a part of your journey. When I start talking about communicating with ETs and channeling spirits and stuff, that may be something that isn't of interest to you at all. And if you choose to listen to that sort of stuff, absolutely fine, but don't take it on board and start getting scared that all of that shit's going to happen to you, because if it hasn't come into your awareness, it's probably not for you. Equally, if it's something that is going to come in at some point in the future, it will only come in when it's ready. So I'm going to give you a little example of this. Last year, when I started having sessions with a healer called Wolfgang, who's also one of my mentors, my first session I had with him, we delved right into removing cords and hooks and past lives from all these entities that I'd never heard of before. He said a lot of them by name, and there'll be a lot of things that I say by name in the meditations in this course. Now, I did the worst possible thing you could probably do, which was after the session had finished, I literally remembered all of these scary, nasty things that I heard, and I wrote them all down, and I sat and Googled them. And I Googled and Googled, and I went down these huge internet wormholes, and I just brought up all of this stuff that, I mean, I've put most of it out of my head now. I brought up all of this stuff that I really wish I didn't know about. And to be honest, a lot of it is probably bollocks, because everyone out there, like not everyone out there is truthful, everyone has their own agenda. And I made myself feel really, really not okay. Like the next day after that session, when I should have been enjoying the kind of benefits of having all of that healing, I was sat in my front room, wrapped in a blanket, literally going, I don't want to know that. I wish I didn't look. I wish I didn't look. I want it all to go away. Like, I don't want to be a healer or a psychic anymore. I just fucking want it all to stop. I felt crazy. I felt anxious, and it just wasn't a fun place to be in. After that day, I made an agreement with myself that when I'm having a session with someone, or when I'm listening to a meditation that's for my benefit, like a healing meditation or something like that, I made an agreement with myself that whatever needs to happen in that session happens for a reason, it's happening for the highest good, and I leave it in the session. So pretty much teach all of this shit like Vegas. So if you have a healing or a psychic reading or something comes up in the meditation, like what stays in Vegas, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So what happens in the healing or the meditation stays in there. If you really feel drawn to doing research on these things, I would stay away from researching the dark stuff, because if I'm honest, you're just going to call it in. It does not deserve your attention. Bringing your awareness to it, if bringing your awareness to it is needed, it will come through a meditation, it will come through in a conversation with someone, but you don't need to go digging for it. With regards to some of the bigger picture stuff, I know that a lot of you are probably really intrigued with kind of the bigger picture, what's happening to the planet, what's happening in the universe. Absolutely fine if you want to look at that stuff, but again, it's kind of finding balance of bringing awareness to it and starting to, like humans love to pick at scabs, little kids love to pick at scabs. Don't pick at the scab, don't poke the bruise. If you start reading a bit too much and it makes you feel panicky or anxious or a little bit overwhelmed, put it down. Like literally put the internet down, close the fucking book and walk away. I am not in any way saying that like learning things is bad. I think learning things is great, but I think specifically with this topic, especially when you are only just learning about this stuff, you're only just starting to open things up, there can be a tendency to go a little bit too far and make yourself feel a bit nuts. And that is exactly what I kind of want to avoid with this course and also going forwards. So the other good thing, the other way that I want you to start keeping balance is making sure that you're not kind of making this whole spiritual stuff your life. I know that it is a way of life and it is very much, it exists all the time. It's not like it's a fucking hobby that you can pick up and put down, but please don't discover this stuff and just go absolutely into it balls deep and shut everything else off around you. Because again, this is something that people do. I know it's out of excitement and I know it's discovering something new, but once you do that, you will for sure start to feel anxious and panicky because you'll start to feel that you don't connect with the outside world. Like at the end of the day, we are humans. We may be like other beings in meat suits or like higher consciousnesses or whatever you want to believe. We are still human beings on this planet. And I think that it's really, really fucking important to take part in all of the amazing human things around you. So whether keeping balance for you looks like taking more nature walks, looking after your body more, seeing more friends and doing things wholesome, or if I'm honest, a lot of my keeping balance is binge watching really shit programs on Netflix, drinking beer in the pub and eating pizza. Like it may not be something that is particularly healthy or progressive, but that's my way of keeping balance and my way of stopping me feeling nuts, because when I'm doing this stuff, I mean, it's complete balls to the wall fucking crazy, if I'm honest. Some of the things that I've seen and experienced, my way of keeping balance with that is going completely the other way and doing the things that are as most human as possible. Now, obviously, if you have problems with alcohol addiction or anything like that, I'm definitely not suggesting that you start drinking alcohol or going to the pub, just using that as an example. And I wanted to get that disclaimer in there. Something else that really helps me is exercising. If you're not someone that's like an absolute gym addict, I'm not saying that you have to suddenly start going to the gym all the time, but just getting out there and moving your body is so, so, so important because it keeps your energy moving. So while we have all these new frequencies coming in, all these new experiences, we don't want everything to just sit there and get stuck. So I talk a bit about this in grounding as well. It's why grounding is so important, but moving your body and having things physically moving through your channels is going to help with that overwhelm. It's going to help things stop like building up. I don't know if some of you get anxiety and overwhelm and it feels like it kind of starts maybe here in your solar plexus and throughout the day just builds up and builds up until you feel like it's up to your eyeballs. That's generally what happens to me. We have a question. How do you feel about asking your guides for the answers when you have questions or concerns about things as a way to get yourself past the questions? Can you write that in a simplified way? Like, am I reading that wrong? How do you feel about asking your guides for the answers when you have questions or concerns about things as a way of getting yourself past the questions? I don't know if I'm being really thick, but I don't fully understand that question. Is there a way that you can, for my little simplified brain, can you simplify or rephrase that? Do you mean asking your guides? Do you just mean asking for guidance when there's stuff that you don't understand? Oh, instead of using the internet? Yeah, 100%. So for me personally, if there's something I want to know, so great example of the awakening module that I did, I didn't know why spiritual awakening happened, so I just tapped in and asked my guides. Any of the bigger picture stuff that I want to know, I will ask my guides. So for sure, that's definitely something that you can do once you have access to your higher self, once you have access to your guides. You can also use shamanic journeying as a way to do that. Like start with a question and an intent, do your protection, go in and ask, because whatever you need to know that's specific for you will come through. There'll be stuff that won't come through because it won't be in accordance with your highest good. And things that don't come through is because they know that it would overwhelm you. So for sure, I think that asking your guides is definitely the way forward. So that's pretty much what I do. And when I say guides, I also mean higher self, inner self. I kind of see them as all the same thing. So for sure with that. I hope that answered your question. Okay, so I was talking about keeping balance. Okay, so also another really important way of kind of coping with all this stuff so that you don't get overwhelmed, and also so that you prevent like spiritual burnout and emotional burnout, which I have experienced before a few times over the last year, is step away from all of this shit when you need to. So don't feel like, and again, I touched on this in Awakening, don't feel like because you've made this choice to start exploring your spirituality and exploring your gifts, that you suddenly have to go all in balls deep and start walking that spiritual path. Even with regards to this course, if you do a bit and you want to step away, please listen to your intuition and step away. Don't get the feeling that, like, say for example, you do loads of meditation for a week, you feel really connected, you talk to your guides, loads of stuff comes through, and then the next week you just can't be asked. Don't feel like you're being lazy or put judgment on yourself or any of that. Like, let go of all that bullshit that we tell ourselves. If you're not wanting to do something, it's for a bloody good reason, okay? So one of the quickest ways to get overwhelmed is to plow through and ignore the fact that you don't really feel like meditating today. I would still carry on doing like the grounding and protection every morning, just because that's really, really good practice. But you don't have to listen to the meditation. You can take 2 seconds to grow a root out of your butt into the ground and put your bubble of protection on. But with regards to like spiritual practices and doing things super regularly, if you feel like you don't want to do it, please don't do it. Don't worry that you're going to fall off the spiritual path and not get back on. It's just that sometimes we really need to take a break, and it's really, really important that all this stuff that we're learning, we're giving ourselves time for it all to integrate, because a lot of the experiences, especially with more of like the psychic stuff and the connecting, it's stuff that's very, very new, not just for our brains, but for our bodies as well. So our bodies need time to integrate all these frequencies so that we get less of the anxiety and the fatigue and the ears ringing and all those great symptoms. So yeah, don't be afraid to literally just pack it all up and say, no, I'm just going to carry on with my normal human life for a couple of weeks and go back to this when I feel like it. I hope that makes sense. Just looking at my little list down here. Okay, so anxiety. I'm going to talk about anxiety. I have a background in NLP. I used to be an NLP coach, and I've done a lot of work with people with anxiety. Now, anxiety is something that you are going to be very, very lucky if you escape throughout this time, throughout spiritual awakening, throughout the world being in an absolute shit show birthing period that is the pandemic at the moment. Everyone, in my opinion, everyone's going to experience anxiety at some level. So there's two kind of different types of anxiety. One is the type that's very mental, that starts from kind of like spiraling thoughts and worrying about stuff, and then it just kind of moves to the rest of you. And the other is a very energetic anxiety that literally is just a feeling. And in my experience, that feeling's really, really hard to tie to anything. So I'm going to start with the feeling one, because that's the one that I've had most of, if I'm honest, over the last year. So as I said, I'm teaching all of this course from my own experience. So for me, the physical one starts off kind of as like a warm, fuzzy feeling, not a nice, warm, fuzzy feeling though. It's like more of a kind of a vibration around my solar plexus or my heart. And it grows up all the way, sometimes comes up the back of my neck. And it just really, really doesn't feel fun. Now, I will get it from anything from sitting there like a dull feeling in my chest all day that makes me feel a bit breathless, to having full on, it's like someone turns a tap on and it whooshes up the back of my neck and it feels absolutely horrible. And usually I have to really, really sit and journal or meditate or something to find where the fuck it comes from. And a lot of the time, I find it feels really misplaced, because there's nothing that I'm worrying about in my head. It's just the energy. Now, a lot of the time when this happens, it's because we're ungrounded. It's because we've got energy blocks or stuff has built up. Or you may be able to look back. So look back a few days. What were you reading online? What were you talking about? What was in your awareness from the last few days? What I found is it's sometimes a bit of a delayed effect. So, for example, it happened to me really badly last year when all the Black Lives Matter stuff was happening and all those horrible riots everywhere. I spent a day sitting on YouTube doing exactly what I tell people not to do, watching all the riots, getting really upset, really angry at it. I don't know what good I think I was doing by just sitting there watching it. And then a couple of days after this, I had just the worst anxiety attacks. It would come up, just an energetic feeling up here. And then once it got up here, I felt like I couldn't breathe. My eyesight went a bit funny. I had ringing in my ears and I literally felt like I was going to burst. So I just drove all the way to the woods, put my hands on the tree and put all my energy down into the tree as a way of coping with it. But I managed to trace back into my head straight away. It was because I watched all that fucking stuff on the internet. So when this happens and you just don't know where the anxiety is coming from, it could be, something that you can trace back to. It could also be part of your past trauma coming up to clear. So just really kind of try and sit with it. I know it feels absolutely horrible, and I'm going to give you some techniques to get the anxiety feeling down before you start to sit with it and trying to pull out like the meanings for it. But once you've got the actual anxiety down, sitting and trying to pull out meanings for it, you can sit and journal. So literally just sit and write stuff out. Do a brain dump. So literally just write whatever you feel down, and you should be able to kind of, it's like pulling on the thread until you find the tapestry. So you want to get hold of the end of the thread. By journaling, you end up pulling along, and then you suddenly see the big picture, and it's a whole fucking tapestry that you just didn't even realize was buried in your subconscious. Once you have awareness of it, you can then start looking at how to manage that and how to fix it so that it doesn't come back up again. Now, the other type of anxiety is the one that starts in your head. So this is the one where you are thinking about something, you're worrying about something, and you get that horrible, I tell people it's like being stuck in a washing machine. So it's like you're stuck in a washing machine with all these words and thoughts getting whizzed around, and it's like you can't find the fucking off button. I have had this one, and mostly I've had this when I've had things come up in a healing or a meditation that I've then gone and looked up on the internet, and my thoughts have just started spiraling. I also get like this with work. I had it a bit actually the last couple of days with making this course, just because I've had so much busyness going on in my head that it's like I start thinking of one thing, it leads to the next, to the next, to the next. And even if they're not particularly bad thoughts, it's just this sheer number of thoughts that comes out, it fills up my head and goes round and round and round. So with that type of anxiety, that will then also may lead to you then feeling panic in your chest, having sweaty hands, all of the fun stuff. With that sort of anxiety, I find that literally doing anything to shut my brain up is really useful. But in my experience, I don't know how you are with meditating. For me, I'm not great at sitting still in meditation and sort of quieting my mind. I can do it sometimes, but for the most part, my thoughts are too damn loud. So what I like to do is movement meditation. So I do some weird stuff. I do nunchucks. I've learned how to do nunchucks. I do poi, so like fire twirling. I use the speed bag in the gym, or boxing's really good. Yoga's really good for it, because mostly when I'm doing yoga, I'm thinking in my head, don't fall over, don't fall over, don't fall over. So doing things like learning some of the more challenging balances in yoga will help. But pretty much anything that involves focusing and moving will just help you get out of your head and into your body. Which brings me to my first little anxiety technique that I'm going to give you. So this technique requires, I don't have a tennis ball because I forgot to get one before I made this video, so I'm going to use a crystal. Now, this is a type of bilateral therapy, and all you're going to do is get a crystal or a tennis ball or anything that you can throw from one hand to the other, okay? And all you're going to do, excuse me, I dropped it, all you're going to do, hands out, and you're just going to throw it from one side to the other, making sure that it crosses the midline of your body. Now, what this does is it activates both sides of your brain at the same time. Scientifically, anxiety is generally an overactivity of one side of the brain. I'm not going to go massively into the science of it because I'm not a scientist, but it activates both sides of the brain and does something that brings your anxiety down. For me, it's because your attention is fully on this thing in front of you. And if I'm thinking about this thing in front of me, I'm not thinking about all the shit that's going to happen in the next week, or what I need to do tomorrow, or what I need to make for dinner. Okay, so that's something that it works very quickly. You can carry something in your pocket or your bag, and it's something you can pretty much do anywhere. If you're at work or if you're out, literally just sneak off to the toilet and do this until you get the feeling down. And then once you get the feeling down, you can do the pulling on the tapestry thing to get the bigger picture and talk yourself down that way. So it's basically turning yourself into your own therapist. Another technique is the 5 senses technique. So you basically sit or stand wherever you are. You can do this when you're out walking as well. And you literally go through your senses. So for example, you'll start with sight, and you'll look around, and you'll look at every single thing that you can see. And further than that, you might stare at one point and focus right in on it. So say for example, I'm looking at a cushion. I might look right into it and see how close I can see to the threads, look at the patterns in it, notice the textures, notice how light or dark the room is, notice kind of like how far you can see or how close you can see. So doing anything to do with sight. Then you're going to move on to smell. Notice all the smells that you can smell. There's not much I can say about smell, but going to smell. And then you go to taste. So you're like, okay, what can I taste? Can I taste this morning's breakfast? Have I just had a cigarette? Can I taste chewing gum? But just put all of your focus on what you can taste. Then you can go to sound. And again, with sound, you can notice, can you hear things that are close? Can you hear things that are far? Can you look at something and tune into what that sound is? Just really focus on it. And then you will go to feeling sensations. So you will go to, if you're standing or sitting, how your clothes feel on your skin, how the seat feels on your legs, how the ground feels on your feet, maybe the wind's on you, so how that feels, and go through that. And then once you've done that, you're going to go right back to sight and just cycle through those again. That is a really, really good mindfulness technique that I've done so many times when I've been out. I really like this one for anyone who suffers social anxiety, which a lot of you, if you're energy sensitive, you probably will suffer from this in crowds at some point or another, just because there's so many people's energy fields banging into your energy field. I find it a really good one then, because you don't have to, it's not obvious you're doing something, right? So you don't have to be walking through a shopping center with your tennis ball looking like a weirdo, although to be fair, I would fully do that if it got rid of my anxiety. So the 5 senses one is just a nice one that you can do anywhere. The last one that I want to go over is one that is a little bit more in depth, but this is something that you can do if there is a certain situation or a certain recurring thought that triggers your anxiety that you've pinpointed, okay? So this one is more of an NLP technique. And what you want to do is you want to sit yourself in a nice, comfortable area, and you want to bring into mind whatever it is that makes you feel anxious. So I'm going to use the example of being in a shopping center just because it's right there and it's easy. So you would close your eyes and you would put yourself in the shopping center, and you would wait until you get this anxious feeling in your chest. And then you would, I know it sounds weird, but you would turn it up. So you would actively try and make that anxiety feeling as big as you can. Try and get it up to a 9 or a 10. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take note of which direction it's spinning. Okay, so if you focus in on it, you'll feel that it's spinning. Focus on which direction it's spinning. Then you want to see what color is it. So ask yourself, what color is it? Whether you can see a color or feel a color, what color is it? Okay. And then what you want to do is you want to quickly reverse the way that it's going. So take note of which way it's going, reverse the way that it's going, change it to a color that you really like, and chuck sparkles on it, and then open your eyes. Okay, I know that sounds weird as fuck, but it's really, really effective. I've helped people get through anxiety this way by doing it with them in a coaching session. Do it 3-4 times in a row, and when you go back to it, you won't be able to get that anxiety. Do it until you can't get that anxiety past like a 3. Okay, so when you come out of it for the first time, look around your room and name 5 things in the room. This is called breaking state. So once you've gone through that whole process, come in and I'm going to be like cushion, jar, plant, painting, angel's anus. That's what I call my video light. And then sit there and say, okay, I'm going to do that again. close your eyes, put yourself in the shopping center, and go through that again, and just keep doing it until you can only get up to a 3 or a 4. But you can do that with anything. If you have, for example, with this work, if there is something that you are particularly scared of, if you are someone who has had experiences with spirits that haven't been so fun, or like haunted houses or something that spooked you out in a meditation, or even images like exploring past lives and stuff, like sometimes I see some pretty nasty shit. If something of that panicked you and your mind keeps going back to it, then you can use that technique. Another little one that I want to give you just on the image thing, as I've brought it up, if you keep having reoccurring images that you can't get rid of, that are not nice and you don't like them, whether it's from a nightmare, whether it's from a memory, a past memory, and you want to get rid of them, really quick NLP technique is to close your eyes, get the image in front of you. What you're going to do, turn that image black and white. You're going to shrink it down to the size of a postage stamp, and then you're going to blow it away. Okay? That sounds really weird. So literally close your eyes, focus on that image. Turn it black and white, make it as small as a postage stamp, and turn it away. Again, keep doing that until you can't get the image up, and it's just a really good way of tricking your brain so that we can get rid of these things that we don't want in there. Okay, so I hope that you find those techniques useful. Obviously, you can come back to this video as many times as you want and just look up the different techniques, but I would love to know in the support group or on my social media. Just let me know if you try any of those out and if they help. Let's see. Okay, so also on the subject of anxiety, I just want to give a little kind of overview of sometimes why we feel anxiety. Sometimes it's just an energy buildup and it's from overwhelm. But remember that we are all psychic intuitives, and sometimes anxiety is there for a reason. Don't want to freak anyone out by saying this, and this is something that will get a lot easier. The more in tune with yourself you get, the more in tune with your higher self and just how your energy feels, you will learn this as you go. But sometimes you will get anxiety because something bad's going to happen. Or I shouldn't say something bad's going to happen, because your awareness is on something bad. So what I mean as an example, you might meet someone whose energy is not very good. You might meet someone who's not a very good person, and for an unexplainable reason, you suddenly get chest anxiety. They might be a perfectly nice person on the surface, but you get this absolute deep fucking terrified fear anxiety. Maybe you get rushes up your spine. This is either because there's someone whose energy really fucking clashes with your energy, like their energy is not good for your energy, or it may be that you've had a really bad experience with that person in a past life. So all I would do in that situation, stick your protection on. Okay, so obviously I'll go through protection and boundaries more in the protection section, brilliant. But put your bubble of light around you. Literally just say in your head, ask Archangel Michael, please protect me from this person's energy. Imagine yourself in a bubble of light, and maybe just don't get too close to them so that their energy hasn't got a chance to affect yours. So it's not necessarily that anything really bad's going to happen, but it will be kind of an internal warning system in some situations. There will also be, for example, if something really bad happens, say you're in a crowded place and someone at the other end of, I'm going to use camping as an example because this happened last year, someone at the other end of the field gets taken suddenly ill or really badly injured or something. The more psychic intuitive you get, especially if you're really empathic, you might feel that, okay? So you might feel if the atmosphere suddenly changes and the anxiety changes. Again, remember your grounding, remember your protection, and just help bring your energy back down. But it can actually be quite useful for navigating yourself out of situations. So anxiety isn't always a negative thing. Yes, and that's all I have to say on that. So next thing I want to touch on, no, we've gone over that. Oh yeah, laughter. So with all of this, you'll probably notice that I am constantly laughing. I am constantly laughing at myself. I'm constantly laughing at my experiences and just generally laughing at the world around me. This is a massive coping mechanism for me. I do generally find everything very funny and always have done, thankfully. But with regards to this sort of work, it is so important to just take it with light humor. Please don't take yourself too seriously. Don't take this stuff too seriously. Like, laughter does absolutely amazing things to your energetic systems. It raises our vibrations. Raising our vibrations makes all of our energy flow better. It changes the way that new cells rebuild in your body, so you're literally making yourself have a healthier body. And it also can make light of what might otherwise be a really fucking weird situation. So again, with regards to any of the meditations you do on this course, or healings, or anywhere else, if something weird comes up, just laugh at it. You might watch some videos online. I was watching light language channeling yesterday, which I think is absolutely amazing. But I was watching these 3 girls jumping about in the woods doing it, and like, they're absolutely amazing. Like, crack on for what you're doing. But I literally, it made me feel a bit weird, and as soon as I felt weird, I just cracked up laughing, and it made me feel so much better. So please try and find laughter in all of this and everything you do, and it will help a lot. The last thing that I want to touch on is a really good way of making sure that you don't get overwhelmed is use the support group. The Upgrade from Within support group is there for you guys to help each other out, to share things, to help us know that we're not crazy, that we're not going through this by ourselves. So please do feel free to jump in there and share stuff, share your experiences with meditation and stuff on this course, but also share stuff outside of this course. Like, this isn't limited to only things that we're doing within this course. I'd really like you to start sharing if something weird happened to you. Maybe it's not even a negative thing. Maybe you had a really weird series of coincidences that you wanted to share. Maybe it was a conversation with someone, or maybe it was you had a spirit come through or something. Please remember that the group is literally there as an absolute support network, judgment-free zone, and you may find that just by typing it out in there, getting it out of your head and having other people comment and say, oh yeah, that happened to me too, it just takes you from going high alert, what the fuck's going on, to, oh, okay, that happened to them as well. And it also happened to them and them and them. And it just makes it everything a lot less weird and a lot less overwhelming, pretty much. So yeah, make sure you use the group. That is about it for the training I had for you today. Does anyone have any questions at all on anything to do with keeping balance or keeping your mental health good while we're doing this work? Oh yeah, the census thing would probably be good for helping sleep as well. Oh, also the meditation that I've given you guys, the protection and grounding one, you can use that through any time in the day. So if you have anxiety, if you have a panic attack, or if you have anxiety throughout the day, if you're able to go and find somewhere quiet and listen to that 10-minute meditation, it'll take everything right down into the ground. So then you don't even have to worry about it so much. Thank you guys. Thank you. Okay, amazing. So I think that's about it for today. I'm going to log off. Thank you so much for listening, and those on the replay, thank you so much for listening. Bye, guys.